The host's words stunned everyone present in the exhibition hall. These two cars were top-class luxury sports cars. There were just a few of these cars in the whole country, and an ordinary person could only see it in an auto show like this. The same man actually owned both of these cars? Both of the luxury sports cars could not simply be bought with money. The Aston Martin 177 could only be bought by members of the Aston Martin brand. Moreover, the member would only be eligible to buy the car if he already owned 3 or more Aston Martin sports cars worth more than tens of millions of dollars each. That was the basic qualification criterion for the member to be eligible to buy the car. The Aston Martin 177 was very limited, and there were only 77 units of this car in the entire world. This particular one in the exhibition hall right now was the one and only Aston Martin 177 in the country. It was even more difficult to buy the Bugatti Veyron Hermes Special Edition sports car because Bugatti itself only served the world's richest people. Since this sports car was a special collaboration with Hermes, it was even more expensive and limited. To think that these two cars had actually been bought by the same person. This proved that the identity and status of this person were incredibly shocking indeed. However, Charlie's focus was not on the two cars. He was looking for Claire amongst the crowd of people. He continued looking around for the longest time, but he could not find Claire at all. When he was ready to give up, he suddenly heard a man standing next to him say, "Claire, come and take a look at these two cars. These two sports cars are the best in the world, and it is my first time seeing it today." Charlie turned around as soon as he heard the man's voice, and he saw Claire with another man and woman. The man was wearing a suit and leather shoes, whereas the woman was dressed in a slim-fit dress. However, the woman could not be compared to Claire at all. Claire smiled slightly as she walked behind the man and said, "Mr. Grant, I do not know much about cars." The person that Claire referred to as Mr. Grant laughed before he said, "Well, I did a lot of research on cars. After all, our convention and exhibition center often undertakes a lot of auto show activities." When Charlie saw that Claire was keeping her distance from the man and that she was calling him Mr. Grant, he instantly felt relieved, because he quickly guessed that she was only here to talk business with him. Since his wife was here because of business, she might have misunderstood him if she caught him hanging out here today. Therefore, Charlie tried to slip away before she noticed him. Unexpectedly, just as Charlie was trying to leave, Claire raised her head and spotted Charlie almost immediately. "Charlie, what are you doing here?" Charlie did not expect to be discovered by Claire, so he replied in a hurry, "I came here to look at the cars, my dear wife. Why are you here?" Claire nodded and did not think too much about it. After that, she quickly introduced her companions to Charlie. "Charlie, this is Mr. Jason Grant from the Grant family. The Orris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center belongs to them. They were one of the partners of the Wilson Group, but they had already stopped all forms of collaboration and partnerships with the Wilson Group. The Orris Hill Convention and Exhibition Hall will be undergoing a renovation in 2 days' time, and Mr. Grant invited me here to talk about a formal collaboration." Then Claire introduced the woman standing next to Jason to Charlie. "By the way, this is Jessica Zanders, my former high school classmate. She is now working as Mr. Grant's secretary." At this time, Jessica glanced at Charlie with a shocked expression on her face as she said, "Claire, I heard from some of our high school classmates that you married a useless man who is a live-in son-in-law. It turns out that he really is a very ordinary person." Jason smiled faintly as he stared at Charlie with hostility in his eyes, although he hid it very well. Jason had always been interested in Claire, and he knew about Charlie's existence, but he had never met him before. When he finally realized that the man standing in front of him was none other than Claire's husband, Jason looked at Charlie before pretending to ask him curiously, "I wonder what you are doing now, Charlie?" Charlie simply replied, "I am a vagrant now." There was a flash of disdain in Jason's eyes as soon as he heard Charlie's words. Truth be told, he had already had a good impression of Claire when she was still working for the Wilson Group. He had deliberately looked for Claire when he heard that she had already started her own business. Therefore, he was the one who had intentionally thrown out the order for the refurbishment of the convention and exhibition center before inviting Claire over here today. At this time, Jason felt as though he had to show off his status in front of Charlie. Therefore, he looked at Charlie before he smiled and said, "Charlie, I don't think you should be here today. All of the people who came to participate in the auto show today are all famous and wealthy people from Oris Hill. Aren't you afraid that you will embarrass Claire by showing up here today? The expression on Claire's face changed immediately as soon as she heard Jason's words, because she did not expect Jason to ridicule Charlie. Consequently, Claire naturally felt a little uneasy at this time. However, before Claire could say anything, Charlie's eyes turned cold before he replied indifferently, "Do you really think that this auto show is that great? I would not even be here today if it weren't because of my car." "Your car? Do you even know your own place?" Jessica asked as she stared at Charlie with a contemptuous expression on her face. "Don't you know that all the luxury cars on display here today are worth at least a few $1,000,000 each? I don't think you can even afford to buy one of the wheels here." Jason laughed before he said haughtily and arrogantly, "Charlie, I understand people like you. You are just a regular live-in son-in-law who is living off your wife and her parents. So are you hoping that Claire will buy you a car so that you will be able to lift your head high?" Just then, Claire spoke up with a cold expression on her face. "Mr. Grant, Charlie does not need me to buy a car for him. In fact, Charlie was the one who bought me the car that I am driving right now." Jason was taken aback because he did not expect Charlie to be able to buy Claire a car. Jessica continued staring at Charlie in disdain before she sneered, "Are you sure you can afford to buy Claire a car?" Jessica looked at Claire before asking, "Claire, what car did your husband buy for you? Is it a Cherry QQ?" Claire replied immediately, "Charlie bought 2 cars for our family. He bought me a BMW 520, and he bought a BMW 530 for my father." Jessica was slightly surprised. "I truly did not expect your husband to be able to afford to buy you a car." At this time, Jason shook his head as he smiled contemptuously. "BMW 520? That is the car that the servants in my house are driving. How could a BMW 520 be good enough for someone like Claire?" Immediately afterward, Jason looked at Charlie before saying, "Charlie, a BMW 520 is a very cheap car. You only need to pay $100,000 for the down payment, and you can take a loan to pay for the car. However, all of the luxury cars here today are worth millions of dollars. If all you can afford to buy is just a BMW 5 Series, I don't think you should be at this auto show at all. You should also know that there are 2 expensive and very luxurious sports cars at this exhibition today. You should take a look at it so you know your own place and where you should stand." Charlie smiled indifferently before he pointed at the 2 luxury cars on the highest platform in the center of the exhibition hall. Then he asked, "You said that I would not be able to afford any of the luxury cars in this auto show today. If so, let me ask you, those 2 are the top luxury sports cars in the world. Can you afford to buy those 2 cars?" Jason sneered. "I can afford to buy any luxury car in this auto show except for those 2 cars. What about you? Even if you're interested in any of the luxury cars here today, I'm sure you will never be able to afford one." After he was done criticizing Charlie, Jason turned around and spoke to Claire. "Claire, I attach great importance to our collaboration this time. To express my sincerity toward you, you can pick any one of the luxury cars here today, aside from the 2 cars in the center of the showroom. Pick any one of these cars since it is already time for you to replace the junk BMW 520 that you are driving right now. How about the Audi RS8? It is a very powerful car, and it is perfect for you." Jason had been coveting Claire for a long time, and the reason he invited Claire over here today was that he wanted to use his wealth and power to win Claire over under the guise of renovating the convention and exhibition center. Jessica knew that Jason had always been interested in Claire. Therefore, she hurriedly said, "Claire, this is a token of appreciation from Mr. Grant. You should not refuse his kind gesture." However, Claire rejected his offer immediately as she said, "Thank you, Mr. Grant, but I cannot accept such an expensive gift from you." Jason laughed as he said, "The Audi RS8 is just $2 million. It is nothing but a little pocket change to me. As long as you like it, I will pay for it and give it to you now." Charlie looked at Jason coldly as he said, "No, thank you. We already have our own cars, and even if Claire wanted a new car, she would not accept a car from you." "In that case, would you be the one buying her a new car instead?" Jason quipped satirically. "I'm not trying to look down on you, but which car would you be able to afford to buy for Claire in this showroom today?" Charlie stared at Jason playfully as he pointed at the Aston Martin 177 and the limited edition Bugatti Veyron on the highest platform, smiling and saying, "How about those two cars that you could not afford to buy?" "Oh, please!" Jason thought that Charlie was ridiculing him on purpose because he could not afford to buy those cars. Therefore, he replied coldly, "Do not be so arrogant, young man. I've already told you that I can afford to buy all of the cars in this exhibition hall today except for those two cars. Can you afford to do so?" Charlie smiled before he said, "If I am going to give Claire a new car, I would give her one of those two cars." "Ha ha ha!" Jason laughed out loud before saying, "Do you even know what sports cars those are? You're just blowing a whistle here. I am not despising you, but those two cars are guarded by the security guards. You will not even be able to get near the cars, let alone buy them." Charlie smiled and said, "I think you are the one who would not be able to get near the cars. You can't even touch the cars, right?" Jason sneered immediately. "The Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center belongs to my family. Do you think that I do not have any power at all? If I wanted to touch the cars, do you really think the security guards would not give me any face?" Charlie shrugged as he replied, "I think that you are just the same as I am. If I can't touch the car, you can't touch it either. We are both in the same boat." Jason exploded as soon as he heard Charlie's words. Gritting his teeth in anger, he said, "Do you honestly think you are worthy enough to be compared to me?" Charlie nodded as he said, "Why, of course. As I said, there is not much difference between the both of us. If you do not believe me, why don't you go and try touching the cars?" "Okay." Jason accepted Charlie's challenge without any hesitation at all. "Just wait. I will show you that I can touch the cars whenever I want to." After saying that, Jason walked through the crowd of people as he headed toward the highest platform. Charlie had a cold expression on his face at this time. Graham and Zeke had given those two cars to him, and they had already hired and paid for the security guards to look after the cars. In fact, the security guards had been given instructions to ensure that no one else touched any of those two cars before Charlie. If Jason managed to touch the cars today, Charlie would just look for the two of them to settle the score with them. At the very least, he would have to punish them for this crime. But then again, even if Jason managed to touch the cars, so what? He would just take out the smart bracelet keys from his pocket and sit in the car himself. Charlie wondered how Jason would react to that. Jason walked past the crowd of people before walking toward the security guard and saying, "Brother, I am the Deputy General Manager of the Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center. My family owns this convention and exhibition center. Could you allow me to step closer to appreciate the two cars at a closer distance?" "No!" One of the security guards who had recently retired from the army replied firmly. "Our boss has already instructed us not to allow anyone to approach the cars. Only the owner of the car is allowed to approach the cars." Jason was very angry and frustrated at this moment. Damn! He was really not allowed to touch the cars at all. This was extremely embarrassing. Moreover, this exhibition center was owned by his family. If he was truly not allowed to touch either of the two cars, wouldn't that mean that he was exactly the same as Charlie? No! Jason could not afford to lose face to Charlie. Jason suppressed the frustration that he was feeling as he continued speaking to the security guards in a gentle tone. "Brother, I am also a car enthusiast, and I own this exhibition hall. Just allow me to step in and take a closer look at the cars for a brief moment. I promise that I will definitely treat you well in the future." The security guard was a veteran soldier with an upright personality. Therefore, he declined Jason's request without any hesitation at all. "Sir, I am just going to repeat myself one last time. If you are not the owner of these cars, you are not allowed to approach or get closer to these two cars." When Jason saw that the other party was refusing to give him any face at all, he was extremely angry and annoyed. Gritting his teeth angrily, he threatened the other party. "Do you know that my family owns this exhibition center? You are just a security guard, but you actually dare to go against me? Do you want me to get you fired immediately?" The guard replied, "I am sorry, but I am a security guard working for a security company. I am not a security guard working for the Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center. Even if you are the boss of this exhibition center, you have no right to control or fire me at all." "You!" Jason was very embarrassed at this time. "You are ridiculous!" After that, Jason yelled, "Do you believe that I can chase you out of my exhibition center right now?" The other party looked at Jason with a blank expression on his face as he said, "We have already signed a contract with the management team of Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center because we are renting this spot in your convention center today. So you have completely no right to chase me out of the exhibition center. Moreover, my job is to protect the safety of this car. If you have any other questions or opinions, please do not hesitate to contact my boss directly." Charlie walked up to Jason, smiling before he asked, "Oh, Mr. Grant, what is the matter? Are you so furious because the security guards refuse to allow you to get closer so that you can touch the cars? It seems like we are the same after all." Jason glared at Charlie and glanced at Claire with an embarrassed look on his face. He had been bragging earlier, but it seemed as though the security guard refused to give him any face at all. He really could not touch the two cars, even though he really wanted to prove that he could do so. This was such a shame. When Jessica saw the frustrated expression on Jason's face, she quickly said to Charlie, "You are nothing but a peasant, so who are you to compare yourself to Mr. Grant? Do you believe that I will ask the security guards to chase you out of the exhibition hall right this instant?" Just then, a reporter stepped forward with a camera in his hand and said, "Brother, the security guards already told you that you are not allowed to touch the cars, so please stop causing a scene here. You are blocking all of us, and we cannot take any good pictures of the cars at all." The crowd of people also echoed, "Exactly! Why are you so desperate to touch the cars? Just take a look at it from afar." He must be one of those vain people who want to touch the car and take a picture of himself touching the car to post it on his social media account. The expression on Jason's face was very ugly at this time. If he was not allowed to touch the cars, wouldn't he be the same as Charlie? As he thought about this, the expression on his face darkened as he approached the security guard once again. "I am giving you 30 seconds to move away. If you still try to block my way, I will chase all of you and these luxury cars out of my exhibition hall immediately. Let me see how you are going to proceed with the auto show then." At this time, a manager dressed in a suit hurried over as soon as he heard the commotion. There was a group of sturdy and muscular bodyguards following closely behind him. "What is happening? Who is causing a commotion here?" When Jason saw the manager, he asked him arrogantly, "Are you the person in charge?" "Yes." The man nodded before he continued speaking. "I am the executive manager of the auto show exhibition. My name is Luke Marshall. You are?" Jason snorted before he said, "I am Jason Grant, the owner of the Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center." Luke nodded slightly before he replied, "So you are Mr. Grant. What is the matter?" Jason spoke to him coldly. "Your subordinates are truly very incapable. I want to go up to the platform so that I can take a closer look at the cars, but he refused to let me do so. What do you mean by that? Are you looking down on me?" Luke smiled before he replied, "Sorry, Mr. Grant, but these two cars have already been bought by a customer. We are just waiting for the customer to pick up the cars. Since these two cars are so rare and expensive, we cannot allow just anyone to touch the cars if they are not the owner." Jason frowned before he said, "Does that mean you are not going to give me face as well?" "I am really sorry, Mr. Grant," Luke replied immediately. "I cannot give face to anyone on this matter. We have received very specific instructions that no one is allowed to touch those two cars as long as they are not the owner of the cars." Jason was extremely furious. He could not believe that Luke would turn down his request in front of so many people, especially since Claire was also here right now. He was furious. Well, they could not blame him for going crazy then. Jason shouted angrily, "Okay, since you are so powerful, I believe that our small exhibition center is too small to accommodate you. Please take all your cars and leave the exhibition hall immediately." Luke replied, "Mr. Grant, don't you think that this is too much? We have already signed the contract, and we have already paid up front for the rental of this exhibition hall. Do you really want to breach the contract?" "So what if I choose to breach the contract?" Jason replied in annoyance. "I would rather pay you the liquidated damages as long as I can get rid of you immediately." At this time, Jessica hurriedly persuaded Jason in a low voice, "Mr. Grant, if we breach the contract, we will have to pay 3 times the amount that the other party has paid for the rental of the exhibition hall. If the chairman finds out about this matter, he will surely be angry." Jason was stunned again. Charlie laughed as he said, "Mr. Grant, do you mean to tell me that someone of your status cannot even touch those two cars at all? Is it honestly that difficult for you to touch the cars? To think that you are the general manager of the Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center, this is such a shame." Jason replied angrily, "Who said that I cannot touch those cars?" After he was done speaking, Jason turned around and pushed Luke aside before saying, "I will touch those two cars today no matter what happens. If you do not want to cause any trouble, you'd better stand aside. Otherwise, I will definitely teach you a lesson." Luke was very anxious when he saw Jason rushing toward the limited edition Aston Martin 177. He hurriedly called for the security guards to stop him. Jason did not expect that the security guards would really try to stop him. Therefore, he yelled out loudly, "I want all the security guards in the exhibition center to come over to me now." Even though the security guards who were guarding the cars were hired from an external party, there were a lot of security guards working for the exhibition center itself. Who was afraid of whom? When Luke saw the security guards working for the exhibition center running toward them, he called Graham immediately because he was afraid that there would be a conflict. "Mr. Quinton, there is a Mr. Grant from the Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center who is insisting on touching the Aston Martin 177. There is a fight going on right now. What should I do now?" Graham was extremely shocked, and he immediately burst out, "I bought that car for Mr. Wade. I don't care who wants to touch the cars. Other than Mr. Wade, no one else is allowed to touch the cars. If anyone tries to touch the car, I want the security guard to break his hand." Luke hurriedly replied, "Mr. Quinton, the Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center belongs to the Grant family. Wouldn't it be a little too much if we did that?" "So what? Who cares about the Grant family?" Graham yelled violently over the phone. "The Grant family is nothing to me. I'm giving you an order right now. If that kid with the last name Grant dares to lay a finger on the car that I bought, I want you to get out of Oris Hill, and you'd better pray that I never see you again." Graham had just gotten the 2 magical pills from Charlie yesterday and had been so excited that he could not fall asleep at all throughout the entire night. Now, someone was actually trying to touch the car that he had bought for Mr. Wade. The Grant family could not be compared to the Quinton family at all. Moreover, Graham had Charlie to support him. Therefore, he was not worried about Jason Grant at all. Luke could feel his heart wavering when he heard Graham's words. When he looked up, he realized that Jason had already brought a few security guards with him and was choking the security guard who was guarding the car. Jason said arrogantly, "If you refuse to get out of the way, I will ask my men to deal with you immediately." Luke was trembling in anger. Was this how he was going to treat the security guards who were merely doing their job? Moreover, these security guards had already undergone extensive training, so how could the security guards at the exhibition hall be compared to them at all? Besides, he had already received instructions from Graham, and he was afraid that he would also be in trouble if something went wrong. Therefore, Luke pointed his finger at Jason before he said, "Hit him. I want you to beat him up. Even if you kill him today, Mr. Quinton will surely look out for you." The security guards hired by Graham could no longer tolerate Jason's terrible attitude. He was really itching to teach him a lesson. As soon as he heard Luke's order, he rushed toward Jason as he yelled, "Brothers, let's teach this guy a lesson today!" After saying that, the security guard punched Jason directly in the face before saying, "I have wanted to hit you for a very long time, you bastard!" Jason was shocked that the security guard really dared to hit him. He yelled angrily, "I am from the Grant family, and this is my establishment. You actually dared to hit me? Screw you!" The security guard, who used to be a veteran soldier, yelled as he raised his leg and kicked Jason hard in his stomach. As soon as he was kicked, Jason fell to the ground and clutched tightly onto his stomach as he rolled around on the ground. The security guards working at the convention and exhibition center could not be compared to the security guards hired by Graham. After a short while, all of them were already laying on the ground after getting beaten up. Jessica rushed over to Jason's side as she cursed angrily at the security guard. "Are you guys looking for death? You actually dared to hit Mr. Grant? Do you know the Grant family? They will never let you off." At this time, Luke simply replied coldly, "The Grant family? Let me tell you something. This car was bought by the head of the Quinton family. He said that the Grant family is nothing to him at all, and he asked Mr. Grant to challenge him if he dares to do so. The Quinton family. Jason was dumbfounded when he heard Luke's words. Jason was in pain, but he was also terrified at the same time. The Quinton family? The Quinton family was one of the most powerful and wealthiest families in the whole of Oris Hill. They were second only to the Moore family. Besides that, the Quinton family had always had a good relationship with the Moore family. In contrast, the only thing that the Grant family had was this exhibition center. There was a vast difference between the Quinton family and the Grant family. How could he possibly stir up trouble with the Quinton family? Jason ignored the pain that he was feeling in his body as he said apologetically, "I am sorry. I am truly very sorry. I did not know that this car belongs to the Quinton family. I am sorry." Jason was extremely frightened, but he was also very furious and angry at this time. He had gotten beaten up in the convention and exhibition center that he owned, and he even had to kneel and apologize to the person who had beat him up. Most importantly, he was beaten up and humiliated in front of Claire. This was the biggest humiliation that he had ever suffered in his life. However, Jason knew that he could not afford to provoke the Quinton family. Therefore, he could only curse at Charlie in his heart. He felt that all of this had only happened because Charlie was the one who had challenged him to touch the car. As a result, he had been beaten up and humiliated in front of Claire. He had to exact revenge on Charlie. He had to make him pay for what he had done today. At this time, Luke quickly ordered the security guards, "Okay, stop beating him already." The security guards stopped hitting him immediately. The security guards working for the convention and exhibition center had already been badly beaten up, and they were all lying on the ground. Charlie stared at Jason, who was sitting on the ground, and smiled as he said, "Mr. Grant, it seems as though you really have no way of touching those two cars at all." Right then, Jason hated Charlie to death, and he honestly did not expect him to continue provoking him at this time. Jason glared at Charlie as he cursed, "Charlie, you are the reason why I am suffering this humiliation today. I will make sure that you pay for this." Charlie smiled as he replied, "What? Did I do anything wrong?" After that, Charlie looked at Claire, who was standing next to him, before asking, "My dear wife, please tell me whether I did anything wrong." After that, Charlie looked at Claire, who was standing next to him, before asking, "My dear wife, please tell me whether I did anything wrong." Claire felt a little embarrassed at this time because she was placed in a tough spot. She had indeed been very annoyed and angry when Jason was ridiculing Charlie earlier. However, she truly did not expect things to turn out like this. The reason why she did not lose her temper at Jason earlier was simply that she was hoping they could still collaborate on the refurbishment of the exhibition center. However, Claire was filled with disgust when she finally saw Jason's true colors. Therefore, she looked at him seriously before she said, "Mr. Grant, you were the one who started provoking Charlie in the first place. You were also the one who insisted on touching the car, and that is the reason why you got beaten up. What has this got anything to do with Charlie? I hope that you will be able to tell right from wrong and stop causing trouble for Charlie." When Jason realized that Claire was also filled with resentment and looking down on him, he glared at Charlie, gritting his teeth as he yelled, "You useless piece of trash! I will teach you a lesson." Charlie looked at him in shock as he asked, "What did you call me?" Jason replied, "I called you a useless piece of trash. Are you deaf?" At this time, Jessica, who was standing at the side, also chimed in and said, "Charlie, you are nothing but a useless son-in-law who is living off his wife and her family. You should be glad that Mr. Grant is only calling you a piece of trash." Charlie was not mad at all. He simply smiled before saying, "You said that I am just a useless piece of trash, but it seems as though you cannot touch those two cars at all, even getting beaten up because you wanted to do so. Why don't you tell me who is truly the piece of trash?" The crowd of people burst into laughter as soon as they heard Charlie's words. The expression on Jason's face was extremely ugly at this time. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Don't act as if you will be able to touch the cars if you want to. Why don't you show me whether you will be able to touch the cars?" Jason thought that he would be the one fooling Charlie this time. If Charlie fell for his trick and tried to touch the cars, he would certainly get beaten up as well. When that happened, Jason would be able to save a little bit of face for himself. However, Charlie unexpectedly replied very calmly, "What is the point of simply touching the car? Would you like me to test drive the car for you instead? Ha ha ha! Jason sneered immediately. Test drive? Who do you think you are? You are just a useless piece of trash, and you actually think you will be able to test drive those cars today? If you could even touch the doorknobs on the cars, I will admit defeat immediately. Jason was not afraid to challenge Charlie because Luke and his men were all guarding the cars anyway. If Charlie actually tried to touch those cars, he would certainly get beaten up too. Charlie smiled and pointed at the Aston Martin 177 in front of him before he asked Claire, "Wife, would you like to take this car out for a drive? If you want to, I will bring you on a drive right now." As soon as she heard Charlie's words, Claire hurriedly pulled him aside before whispering, "Charlie, what are you doing? Do you really want Mr. Grant to win?" At this time, Jason struggled to stand up before sneering at Charlie. "Charlie, what are you trying to prove? Do you even know anything about this car? Did you know that there are only 77 units of these cars in the world and that none of them are available for sale in the market? You are dreaming of driving this car when my dad has not even sat in this car before." Charlie shrugged as he replied, "This is my car. Why can't I take it for a drive?" Jason laughed even louder when he heard Charlie's words. "Charlie, are you addicted to lying? Do you even know your own place or status at all? Do you really think you have the qualifications to ride in this car?" Jessica also said disdainfully, "Claire, I am honestly disappointed that you have married such a useless person who likes to boast." At this time, Claire felt completely helpless and could only stare at Charlie with a disappointed expression on her face. Was this guy seriously mentally retarded? Did he truly not understand the consequences of his actions even on an occasion like this? Charlie could not be bothered to explain himself, and so he simply took out the 2 smart bracelet keys from his pocket before waving them in front of Luke, who was in charge of the auto show. After that, he asked lightly, "Have you seen these before?" Luke was shocked when he saw the smart bracelet keys in Charlie's hands. After that, he suddenly recalled what Graham had told him over the phone. Oh my God. Was this young man Mr. Wade? It seemed like it. They were all calling him Charlie Wade. Therefore, Luke quickly bowed down as he said humbly, "Hello, Mr. Wade. I am sorry that I did not notice you before." After he was done speaking, he quickly pointed at the 2 cars behind him before saying, "Mr. Wade, you can drive these 2 cars away anytime you like. If you do not want to drive it back yourself, we can arrange for the transport company to send them to your house." The crowd was stunned at this scene. Jason was so shocked that his eyes looked as though they were about to pop out of its sockets. Jessica was equally dumbfounded. Luke dared to order someone to beat Jason up, but he had actually bowed and greeted Charlie so politely as though the latter was his grandson. What was even more incredible was the fact that, according to Luke's words, these 2 sports cars belonged to Charlie? What was going on? Claire was also very surprised and did not know what was happening. However, Claire suddenly had a vague idea of what was going on when she recalled that Zeke had given Charlie the villa at Thompson First. Charlie must have gone around giving feng shui advice to the rich people again. Just then, Jason hurried over to Luke before saying, "Mr. Marshall, this must be a terrible mistake. Charlie is known to be the poor son-in-law of the Wilson family. He is not the person you think he is." Jessica stared at Luke before chiming in, "Exactly! Mr. Marshall, just look at Charlie. He is so poor. How could he possibly afford to buy such an expensive sports car? I think that he probably bought those 2 bracelet keys online and brought them here to the showroom to pretend that these cars belong to him. You should not be fooled by him." Charlie snorted before he led Claire toward the Aston Martin 177. The security guards who were adamantly protecting the cars from being touched by others naturally stepped back and made way for Charlie when they saw Luke being so polite to him. Charlie held Claire's hand as he led her toward the driver's seat. As soon as they approached the car, Charlie suddenly heard a beeping sound. The headlights, which looked like shark eyes, lit up immediately. The LCD screen and ambient light in the car also lit up at the same time. At this time, the Aston Martin 177's iconic pair of scissor doors rose up automatically. Everyone on the scene was shocked when Charlie unlocked the Aston Martin 177 with the smart bracelet key. They could only exclaim in their hearts, "The Aston Martin 177 actually belonged to Charlie." Jason was also dumbfounded at this time. What was happening? Wasn't Charlie just a broke son-in-law? How could he possibly afford to buy such an expensive car? Jessica was also stunned. This is unbelievable. How could this man possibly afford to buy an Aston Martin 177 when he was such a poor and useless man? Then, Charlie led Claire to the passenger seat before smiling and saying, "My dear wife, why don't you get into the car? I will take you for a spin." Claire looked at Charlie with a confused expression on her face as she asked, "Charlie, is this car really yours?" Charlie nodded. "Of course, the key is already in my hand. Why would I lie to you?" After saying that, Charlie quickly whispered into her ear, "Wife, to be honest, Graham lent this car to me so that I can experience driving this car for a short while. I deliberately pretended that this car belonged to me because Jason was provoking me earlier. Please do not expose me in front of him." Truth be told, Charlie was not very interested in these two cars because he felt that they were too showy. Moreover, if Stephen had not told him that his wife was here today, he would not even have bothered to come here to collect these cars. Besides, Charlie understood his wife's personality. She would never want to drive such a showy car out on a daily basis. That was the reason why he made up that lie. After taking his wife on a drive in this car so that she could experience it for herself, he would hand the two cars over to Luke for safekeeping. When Claire found out the truth, she was instantly relieved. She was really afraid that Charlie would continue giving feng shui advice to rich people because she was afraid that he would eventually get into trouble. Since someone else was just lending him the car so that he could experience it, she did not need to worry too much. As she thought about it, Claire felt a lot more relaxed, and she was also curious to find out more about the Aston Martin 177. Even though Claire was not a vain or materialistic woman, she also wanted to sit in and experience such a luxurious sports car for herself. Therefore, she bent over slightly before settling inside the passenger seat of the super-luxurious Aston Martin 177. Charlie did not get into the car immediately. Instead, he simply looked at Jason and Jessica before he said, "A piece of trash will always be a piece of trash. You should go back and make more money before you come out and embarrass yourselves again." Having said that, Charlie got into the driver's seat before turning on the engine. Within a few seconds, the sports car's powerful engine roared throughout the entire exhibition hall. Claire had never driven such a luxurious car before. After getting into the car, Charlie sat in the driving position and swallowed hard before gripping the steering wheel excitedly as he started the car. The top luxurious Aston Martin. 177 slowly rolled down the slope on the other side of the booth as Charlie drove out of the exhibition hall. The powerful roar of the engine caused a huge sensation in the exhibition hall. Jason was completely stunned. Did the car truly belong to that piece of trash? What was going on? Jessica was also pale as she thought about it. She had insulted Charlie so much earlier, but he actually owned two of those super luxurious sports cars? She could not help but mutter, "No, this is impossible. How could the useless son-in-law of the Wilson family afford to buy those cars? How did he get hold of the car keys?" Jason could not accept reality either. Gritting his teeth, he said, "That piece of trash must have stolen the car keys!" Luke was very angry when he saw that these two idiots were still insulting Charlie at this time. They were indeed asking to die. Luke turned around and stared at Jason and Jessica before yelling angrily, "You have already offended Mr. Wade, and you are still barking like a mad dog here?" Then, he quickly instructed the security guards, "Hit him hard!" Jason was immediately knocked to the ground with 3 punches and 2 kicks from the security guards. After that, they grabbed his hair before punching him in the face repeatedly until his face was completely swollen. Jessica was also beaten until her hair was disheveled and her mouth was crooked at this time. Jason could not help but yell out in pain. After beating them up, Luke ordered the security guards to throw them out of the exhibition hall. Jason lay on the concrete floor as he yelled angrily, "Damn it! Who the hell is this Mr. Wade?" Jessica also said angrily, "He is just the son-in-law of the Wilson family. I think that he is just a driver. How could he possibly have any status at all?" Blood was already spewing out of Jason's mouth as he yelled, "That useless piece of trash! I will never let him off so easily." Gritting his teeth, he continued, "And Claire, she will never be able to escape from me." Therefore, the Aston Martin. 177 was driven out of the exhibition hall just like that. The super-luxurious sports car aroused the attention and curiosity of countless people on the street. Claire also felt that it was a very thrilling and novel experience, as this was her first time riding in an Aston Martin. After all, it was the top supercar in the world, and any young person would want to have the opportunity to experience it at least once in their lifetime. However, Claire only wanted to experience it. After driving for a short while, Claire said to Charlie, "Let's drive the car back to the exhibition center. I do not want to spoil the car." Charlie replied, "Why are you so worried? Mr. Quinton is a very nice person." "I don't think that it is very appropriate to take advantage of him," Claire replied earnestly. "Anyway, since we have already experienced what it is like to ride in an Aston Martin 177, let's return the car so that we can go home." Charlie nodded when he saw how persistent Claire was. After that, he drove back to the exhibition hall before parking the car back on the platform. As soon as he got out of the car, Luke greeted him respectfully before he asked, "Mr. Wade, how does it feel to drive the sports car? Are you satisfied?" Charlie nodded before he said in a low voice, "First, I want you to find a place for me to store these two cars safely. I will take these cars from you when I need to use them." Luke did not ask too many questions, simply nodding as he said, "Mr. Wade, you can rest assured that I will help you keep these cars safe." Charlie smiled in satisfaction. "Then, I will go home with my wife first. Please let me send you home, Mr. Wade." "No need." Claire could not help but sigh on the way back home. "Initially, I thought that I would be able to try and negotiate a partnership with the Oris Hill Convention and Exhibition Center. That way, I would be able to invite them to attend my opening ceremony tomorrow. However, it looks as though that is not happening anymore." Charlie asked Claire, "Dear wife, will you be officially opening your studio tomorrow?" "Yes, that's right," Claire replied immediately. "After so many days of preparation, I think I am finally ready to open my studio officially." At this time, Claire said melancholically, "It's truly a pity that I will not be able to invite anyone with a good reputation to come for my opening ceremony. I have only invited a few of my classmates, you and my parents." Charlie nodded, but he was thinking in his heart, "Who said that you would not be able to invite anyone with a good reputation? Your husband will get it done for you." Doris from Emgren Group, Warnia from the Song family, Graham from the Quinton family, Zeke from the White family, the mobster boss, Orville Hong, and also Finn from Treasure Pavilion. They were among some of the most high-profile and powerful people in Oris Hill, and they were all calling him their master. As long as he gave them an order, they would undoubtedly drop by his wife's studio to attend her opening ceremony. When that happened, his wife's business would surely cause a huge sensation in Oris Hill. As soon as he thought about it, Charlie immediately sent out some text messages on his cell phone. "My wife's studio will be officially opened tomorrow. Please make some time to come over and join us for the opening ceremony. The address is..."